Well, it seems like every election cycle, every 4 years, there are always new twists and turns. And it to me is, I'm like I'm not into sports. It's kind of like my football, my version of basketball. I mean, hockey, soccer, what have you, baseball. I mean, it's a blood sport for me. Politics. I eat it, I drink it, I sleep it. I'm obsessed with it, and I try to shake myself off of this habit. Politics to me is like heroin. It's like crack. Not that I've ever done heroin or crack. I wouldn't. But I'm just saying it's kind of like a drug addiction. I'm a dope fiend for politics. Um, but anyway, right now, it's all signed, sealed, and delivered. We all know what the situation is. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the team to defeat Trump and Pence. And I look forward to this, to the end of the election, that I will not have to be talking about the 2020 race, in particular, primaries and the actual campaign, and go back to or talking about, other political issues, that that I can have a little more broad range on. Because there's so many other issues I like to talk about. But right now, the election is what is hot at the moment, and therefore, I find myself talking about this election and everything around it. So, anyway, 2019, 2020 was a rough primary. It was bloody, and it was kind of like a fight between the status quo establishment corporate Democrats and the Sanders forces. And no matter how you slice it or dice it, Bernie Sanders made an impact because even some of the corporate establishment types try to pass themselves off as Bernie Light, even though they weren't particularly sincere or honest about it. Imitation is the best form of flattery. So, anyway, but suffice to say, the primaries was rigged, and I said it once, and I'll say it probably 1,000 more times. It was rigged. It was rigged against Bernie. It was rigged against Andrew Yang. It was rigged against Marianne Williamson, and it was particularly rigged against Tulsi Gabbard. They were the main ones that the Democratic Party establishment found as problematic as they found Bernie Sanders, and they wanted to knock them all out of the way and go back to the way things were prior to 2015 with the corporate centrists in control. And they don't know what to do. I kind of like seeing the establishment sweat. But anyway, um, well, we're in a situation when, uh, practically everybody who were bucking the establishment having to make peace with the establishment, um, eating crow. And there's one thing I can't stand in the political world is eating crow, and people are forced into it. I'm, yeah, I'm on one hand, I get a little irritated when Bernie Sanders or AOC or Rokana or any of the Justice Democrats, the Squad, and anybody else on the left who bucks the establishment being forced to play nice with the establishment. Um, one hand, I do frown, and I say this and I have disapproval over it. But on the other hand, I am not in the shoes of Bernie Sanders or AOC or Rokana or the other Justice Democrats or the Squad. I'm not in their shoes, and they are under a lot of duress and pressure. And yeah, and it's the consequence of the two party system we live in. And they are the best people to put a stop to a lot of the negative shenanigans that have been going on for decades. They're trying. And as I said, although I am a little critical at times or disappointed with them sometimes, I'm not in their shoes, and I know that they're going to try to continue to fight the good fight to the best of their ability. Yeah, I was not happy with Bernie Sanders um, during the end before he suspended his campaign, saying Joe Biden and I have some disagreements, but he is a wonderful person. He's a good friend of mine, and he is, of course, he could defeat Donald Trump. He said that while he was still the primary candidate. My God, I know you don't have to insult him. You don't have to sit there and talk smack about Joe Biden. That's what people like me are here for. But at the same time, don't pretend like Joe Biden, is wonderful. I'm sure Joe Biden is a great guy at dinner parties and share cocktails with, and I'm sure he could share, say a good joke and all of that. In spite of his checkered past, um, I mean, he's a mixed bag. But on a personal level, I can see where people from across the political spectrum will say they like him on a personal level. But Joe Biden on so many policy issues is he's just not the man to go against Trump. And I'm saying, and this is from a person who's going to hold my nose and vote for Biden and violently throw up at the nearest toilet afterwards. So Bernie Sanders made peace with the establishment. Um, Andrew Yang made peace with the establishment. Tulsi Gabbard made peace with the establishment. In her own way, AOC calling Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear on the View made peace with the establishment. And thing about it is that they all they're all under tremendous pressure, and they want the credibility. They want the credibility. They want to make changes, but they're settling to have a place at the table. And one can look at having a place on the table two ways. One, a place in the table as a means to itself is not progress. But to me, I mean, I actually want a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. I want to push the corporate Democrats out of the Democratic Party, push them maybe into the Republican Party to maybe make the Republican Party less crazy and to have a social democratic and labor party in this country to speak out for workers. That's what I would like. So I don't want, I myself, I'm just a YouTube commentator, but I don't want to make friends with Joe Manchin. I don't want to make friends with the Clintons and Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Um, they're just as much my enemies as they're just as much my enemies Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell and various Republican office holders across the country. Just as much. But there are things out there, and there's a lot at stake. A Supreme Court where Democrats are nominally better. Climate change where regular mainstream Democrats are nominally better. There's all kinds of issues where even corporate Democrats are marginally better than the Republicans, and it makes it's just enough that you have to justify making uneasy choices. So you got the establishment pretty much grab the good guys and good gals by the balls. And so progressives, the social democrats who are trying to change things, are trying to change things, and they're doing the best they can under a lot of pressure. Insult is added to injury when corporate Democrats hoard over the never Trumpers, the having again John Kasich and Christine Todd Whitman, Cindy McCain, people like that at the convention speaking, Colin Powell, having all these folks, you know, over. And so when you see that going on, and the corporate Democrats continuously disrespecting the progressives, the social democrats, the Bernie Sanders forces, dissing on them, knowing a lot of us are going to be a bunch of fucking cucks and vote for Biden because there is no alternative that's viable. For that very fact, because of that, I mean, we're in a conundrum. But you know what? So is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They're in a conundrum. They got an uneasy coalition. When you got when it ranges from Bernie Sanders and AOC all the way to George W. Bush and what's the name of her? Megan McCain. And that's part of your coalition. And with all the bland corporate boring Democrats in between. That is pretty much a coalition which is uneasy. It's a coalition that's going to be difficult to maintain. Biden's got an uneasy coalition. So if he wins this unholy alliance, and I say it's unholy because of the never Trumpers, who in their own way are bad as the Donald Trump people. This alliance coalition of people is destined to fall apart. And what happens? What I predict will happen is at some point, all those Republicans who are for Biden now will go back to the Republican Party and fight and probably fight against Trump and succeed. But what happens as a result? The Democratic Party shifts further to the right, and the Sanders people are marginalized more than ever. But we decide in 2024, hey, we're tired of being taken for granted. We should go third party. All of a sudden, you're being divisive again. You better stay in your place. You lefties better stay in your place. You better be glad that we barely acknowledge you. And if we're defeated, then you're going to have the Republicans are going to be worse. And then we're going to sit there and blame you. I'm just tired of this. Year after year, it keeps happening. And I'm just at a loss sometimes. Just just seeing this. But I comfort myself telling me, I just tell myself, look at 2016, look at 2020, excuse me, look at 2020 and compare it to the recent presidential election in France. Look at Joe Biden as Emmanuel Macron and look at Donald Trump as Marine Le Pen and let that guide you. Because, in France, I'm not French, but in France, I don't think I would have felt as dirty voting for Emmanuel Macron as I'm going to feel voting for Joe Biden. But the point I'm trying to make is this is this is what happened to us. These are the cards that we're dealt with right now, and part of me is curious what is to come in the months to come. After the election, what happens? And my prediction is Biden wins. Those never Trumpers will return to the Republican Party and reclaim it, and they'll probably defeat Donald Trump in their own way. It's not going to make the Republican Party better, but it's going to return back to the Bush Cheney era. That's bad enough. But the result will be that the Democratic Party will be further to the right and play more by Republican rules than ever before. And I just don't see any end in sight to this. It's just something that keeps happening. It's like you try something, you keep trying the same approach, hoping for different results, And it's been proven time and time again that it's not going to happen. Democrats, this is what I want to tell you. Just because George McGovern lost badly in 1972 does not mean that being diet Republicans is the answer. You don't want to be like George McGovern. You don't want to be like Walter Mondale. You don't want to be like Michael Dukakis. And while I do think George McGovern was a rock star, and I do think that maybe Walter Mondale and Michael Dukakis were decent enough people, um, both all three, Dukakis, Mondale, and McGovern, were all way better than Bill Clinton and Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden could ever be. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that right now. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you hate it, press dislike and comment. Either way, my URL is youtube.com/social democracy/youtube.com/social democracy/. That is my new URL. I ask you to subscribe to this channel and feel free to share this information. And as a free speech absolutist, I also say that you got a platform, utilize it. We are the muckrakers of our time. And until next time, let me just say, Bernie Sanders for president 2024. And no, I'm not kidding when I said that.